I know you gonna dig this.
Get funky with me.
Oh my God. What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? Here I am in Macon, Georgia. Small little town. I've been here. Well, it's not small. I don't know how many people are here. It's not huge, but it's great. I've been to Macon before. I just had such a, well, it's not like deja vu. When I came in through those columns that you saw at the beginning, I was here 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure. I could easily look back on the date, find the video, but I didn't. But it was about 4 or 5 years ago. I did a video on the Allman brothers here, who are buried here, and that column I always remember it. Whenever I go into other cemeteries, for some reason I always remember that entrance. I'm always like, where was that? Where was it? And then as I got here, I was like, oh yeah, this is the cemetery. I always remember this entrance to the cemetery and how crazy it was driving through here. You see the lanes are like kinda very small. So I parked all the way up and I'm walking down, and I'm here to tell the story of one of the most brutal crimes in Georgia history. 9 people, an axe, about 15 miles outside of Macon is where this crime took place. And it is brutal. And we're going to walk over now to where the victims are buried. I'm going to tell you the story. And the house where it happened is so deep in the woods, and it's gone. There's an old well, apparently, that's still on the property, and a little bit of the chimney. And the mother, she was not murdered by the, well, as again the story, she was buried there before it happened, but apparently her grave is still out there, but it's unmarked, and it's pretty much impossible to get to. And I thought, well, it'd be kind of interesting to get there, but once I tried to find location of that, where this horrendous crime took place, it was virtually impossible. And yeah, but it could be an adventure for another time. Try to get out there. Let me tell you about what happened, though. So we're gonna walk down here. I think I'm in the right place, right area. Oh, what I was gonna say was just over. I think it's this hill there. If you can see it. Well, we're gonna walk around. See that one lane road going down that hill? I was going down it. Another person was coming. Oh, no, I was coming up, and they were coming down, and we met halfway in the middle. And it's on a very steep hill. There's no way. No one's making a 3-point turn. You have to back up. And luckily, the 2 people in the other car said, "Well, it's okay. It's okay. You're further up. We'll back up." Southern hospitality, and they did up that winding road. I'm a pretty experienced driver, but I don't know how much I would enjoy doing that. That was very nice of them that day. So the graves of the victims are down here. And we're going to walk, and it's a beautiful, beautiful old cemetery. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, and as you can see, these graves, a lot of them are very, very old. So we're talking about Tom Woolfolk. This guy is about 27 years old. This is in 1887. Apparently he wasn't a really nice guy. People thought he was mentally deranged. Those who knew him said he was cunning, sharp, but unscrupulous. Some said he was very perverse, eccentric, and a cranky sort of person. I thought that was an odd thing that they said. He was cranky. A woman who married him left him within 3 weeks and later divorced him, saying, "He's not crazy, he's simply just mean. The meanest man I ever saw, and there was nothing too mean for him to do." So shortly after his birth, his mother had died, and his sisters were sent to live with a maternal aunt in Athens, Georgia. I've been to many times. I love Athens. Tom's father remarried not too long later and lived with his new wife, Mattie Howard, at the house I was just speaking about. So Thomas went to live there as well. He went to live with his father and stepmother when he got divorced. Apparently he hated his stepmother and strongly disliked the 6 children born as a result of his father's remarriage. He also thought that he wasn't going to inherit anything if there were other children that stood in the way of his inheritance. I'm not sure exactly. I know it's closer to, you can see down there's some train tracks off to your left by that white building, and then the river. So I know I'm in the right spot because he said it's visible from here. Here's where it gets gruesome. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. on Saturday, August 6, 1887, 9 members of the family were murdered with an axe. Now, I'll read the victims out here. Let me just stop so I can read the victims' names. We're going to see them soon. Tom's father, Tom's stepmother, their 6 children, Richard Jr., who was 20, Pearl, who was 17, Annie, who was 10, Rosebud, that's adorable, 7, Charlie, 5, and baby Mattie, who was only 18 months old. 18 months. And a lady named Mrs. Temperance West, who's an aunt of the stepmother. The only inhabitant of the farmhouse that was not murdered was Tom. I had to check and make sure I knew where I was going, but I think I'm going right down here. Is this it? No, I don't think this is it. Because I know that the family did not have headstones for a very long time, and they received new ones at some point. So Tom, this is what he said. He went to the neighbors, claimed that his father's family had been murdered and that he had escaped death by jumping out a window. He then returned to the house before anyone else got there. He later claimed that he moved from room to room to confirm that everyone was dead, and that he heard the unknown killers exit the back way, slamming the fence gate behind them. He then washed himself and flung his blood-stained clothing down a well. So within hours, several thousand people had rushed to the home, and a coroner's inquest was held on the spot. They held it there. He was immediately looked upon as a suspect. Immediately. There's specks of blood in his ears. There's a bloody handprint on his leg. He showed no emotion, and he appeared more apprehensive than grief-stricken. And the explanation of why he was the only one that was not murdered didn't really make much sense at the time. There was no evidence of forced entry or theft. The coroner's jury concluded that he was the murderer, but even before the verdict was rendered, the sheriff quickly took him over to the jail because a lynch mob had started to show up. I actually walked right by them. It's right here, and I knew there were steps going down. And I just turned around and I saw that there, Richard Woolfolk. Wow. Right there. So it was restored in 2006, the gravesites. Woolfolk. Here we are. And exactly where I had read it to be. With the train tracks and the right visible in the background. And the river. Now, there is someone else right over to the left. I'm not sure who that is. I hope they're resting peacefully. There are 9 people here. 9 members of the same family. All murdered on the same day. Right here. 9. This was a huge story. It was on the cover of the New York Times the day after. I mean, it was huge. It was one of the most heinous, most bloody crimes people had heard of back then. This is 1887. At the time, the press nicknamed him Bloody Woolfolk. That's what they gave the nickname to Tom. And the case was the most publicized criminal proceeding in Georgia's history. He was indicted on 9 counts of murder, but tried only for the murder of his father. Trial began. After only 12 minutes of deliberation, the jury convicted him, and the same day he was sentenced to death. Now, a couple of years later, but a year and a half, in 1889, the Supreme Court of Georgia granted him a new trial because the trial court had permitted the introduction of damaging but inadmissible testimony, and also because the court did nothing when, during closing arguments, spectators started yelling, "Hang him, hang him, hang him." So he was granted a change of venue. It didn't change much. 45 minutes was the length of the trial. The jury sentenced him to death. And then, 1890, the Georgia Supreme Court upheld the conviction and sentence. He denied his guilt at both trials, but the evidence of his guilt was overwhelming. Now, they never looked for another suspect. Right away, they assumed that it was him. All evidence still points to that it was him. There was another gentleman in the area who had, I believe was a murderer, murdered somebody. His name is Simon Cooper. And after he died, they found a journal of his where he said, something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing just from remembering stuff I read. I set up Tom real good. I was going to kill him myself, but what he did was better. So insinuating that he went in, killed the family, and Tom got the blame. And then Tom, as we're going to get to, was executed. I'm not sure why I had a catch in my throat. I said it was executed. Never proven. Some other suspects arose. A serial liar, somebody who liked to confess to crimes so that he would have a place to stay, i.e. in prison or jail. So that was just, didn't make any sense. So, yeah, I kind of thinking Tom, with all the people talking about his character beforehand, I'm thinking it was Tom that did it. Now, over in Perry, Georgia, he was hanged in front of a crowd of 10,000 people on a Wednesday afternoon. Where he was executed was where they usually held public executions, in a valley. And like I said, not too far from here. He disappointed the crowd, though, by, once more, he professed his innocence. He's not buried here. He's buried near one of his sisters at Orange Hill Cemetery in Hawkinsville. I think maybe about 2 hours from here, roughly. I don't want to go see his grave anyway. His tombstone has been vandalized, and it's almost illegible what it says on it. So sometime after March 2005, these new headstones were put in. And then also this marble step. Kind of looks like it's been here longer. I was doing my best to hold my hoodie that I'm wearing close to me because I've got a lot of rocks in my pocket. That's something I do, is I bring, per tradition, something I learned growing up, bringing a rock to remember and to show that I've been here. Sign of respect. that is the story of the Woolfolk murders. Quite a famous tale around, just with the helicopters, around this area, around Macon. Probably not a lot of people have heard of it now, because it was so long ago. And I often think about that when, because I don't cover a lot of historical crime or really things 140 years ago, roughly. I tend to do more pop culture on my channel in the recent 80s, 90s. Well, if you've seen my channel before, then you know pop culture crimes. But when you think about murders, so awful, and when you think about when they happened, what a shock that must have been, and how 10,000 people showed up to watch this guy be hanged, and thousands of people show up at the house the day of. It doesn't really happen nowadays. People will drive by murder locations. Sounds familiar. But that many people? Not really. And we tend to look upon them. Maybe it's just me. Sometimes I think, oh, it's so long ago, and it's almost a detachment from it. You just think of it as a story, and because it's so long ago. But it's not just a story. Those 9 innocent people, little Rosebud, and that little baby too, so little, they're just as, they're human. I know what I'm trying to say, but it's not coming across. Their lives meant so much. Their lives meant so much to themselves and to each other and to the people they left behind. And oftentimes we think of these things as just so it happened so long ago, it doesn't have the same impact, but it should. And I'm guilty of that a lot. I tend to think, it's a story, I'm just telling a story. And then when you see the graves, and maybe for you, just watch them on my channel, you see them, you think, my God, 9 people, innocent. And it's horrific and it's sad. I'm glad I made it out here. And it's a beautiful cemetery. If you come out here, there's plenty to see. Rest in peace to all 9 members and of the family. And something about that name, Rosebud. It's a cute name. It's a really cute, sweet name. I hope they're all resting peacefully. Rosebud, you too. Thanks for watching, everybody. I love you all. Peace out.